So the main difference between our society and more highly evolved civilizations elsewhere in the universe is this idea we have of separation.
Yes. The first guiding principle of advanced civilization is unity, acknowledgement of the oneness and the sacredness of all life. And so what we find in all elevated societies is that under no circumstances would one being willfully take the life of another of its own species against its will.
No circumstances?
None.
Even if it were being attacked?
Such a circumstance would not occur within that society or species.
Well, perhaps not within the species, but what about from without?
If a highly evolved species were attacked by another, it is a guarantee that the attacker would be the lesser evolved. Indeed, the attacker would be essentially a primitive being, for no evolved being would attack anyone.
I see.
The only reason a species under attack would kill another would be that the attacked being forgot who it really is. If the first being thought it was its corporal body, its physical form, then it might kill its attacker, for it would fear the end of its own life. If, on the other hand, the first being understood full well that it was not its body, it would never end the corporal existence of another, for it would never have a reason to. It would simply lay down its own corporal body and move into the experience of its non-corporal self.
Like Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Well, exactly. The writers of what you call your science fiction are often leading you to greater truth.
I've got to stop here. This seems directly at variance with what was said in Book 1.
What was that?
Book 1 said that when someone is abusing you, it does no good to allow the abuse to continue. Book 1 said that when acting with love, include yourself among those you love. And the book seemed to say, do whatever it takes to stop the attack on you. It even said that war was okay as a response to attack. And now this is a direct quote, despots cannot be allowed to flourish, but must be stopped in their despotism. It also says choosing to be godlike does not mean you choose to be a martyr, and it certainly doesn't mean you choose to be a victim. Now you are saying that highly evolved beings would never end the corporal life of another. How can these statements stand side by side?
Read the material in Book 1 again.
Closely. My responses there were all given and must all be considered within the context you created, the context of your question. Read your statement on the bottom of page 127 in Book 1. In that statement, you allow as to how you are not now operating at a level of mastery. You say that other people's words and actions sometimes hurt you. Given that this is so, you asked how best to respond to these experiences of hurt or damage. My responses are all to be taken within that context. I first of all said that the day will come when the words and actions of others will not hurt you. Like Obi-Wan Kenobi, you will experience no damage, even when someone is killing you. This is the level of mastery that has been reached by the members of the societies I am now describing. The beings in these societies are very clear who they are and who they are not. It is very difficult to cause one of them to experience being damaged or hurt, least of all by placing their corporal body in danger. They would simply exit their body and leave it for you if you felt the need to hurt it so much. The next point I made in my response to you in Book 1 is that you react the way you do to the words and action of others because you have forgotten who you are. But I say there, that is all right. That is part of the growth process. It is part of evolution. Then I make a very important statement. All during your growth process, you must work at the level at which you are, the level of understanding, the level of willingness, the level of remembrance. Everything else I have said there is to be taken within that context. I have even said on page 129, I assume for the purpose of this discussion that you are still seeking to realize, make real, who you truly are. Within the context of a society of beings who do not remember who they really are, the responses I gave you in Book 1 stand as given. But you didn't ask me those questions here. You asked me here to describe the highly evolved societies of the universe. Not only with regard to the subject at hand, but with regard to all the other topics we will cover here, it will be beneficial if you do not see these descriptions of other cultures as criticisms of your own. There are no judgments here, nor will there be any condemnation if you do things differently, react differently than beings who are more evolved. And so what I have said here is that the highly evolved beings of the universe would never kill another sentient being in anger. First, they would not experience anger. Second, they would not end the corporal experience of any other being without that being's permission. And third, to answer specifically your specific inquiry, they would never feel attacked even from outside their own society or species. Because to feel attacked, you have to feel that someone is taking something from you, your life, your loved ones, your freedom, your property, your possessions, something. And a highly evolved being would never experience that. Because a highly evolved being would simply give you whatever you thought you needed so badly that you were prepared to take it by force, even if it cost the evolved being its corporal life. Because the evolved being knows she can create everything all over again. She would quite naturally give it all away to a lesser being who did not know this. Highly evolved beings are therefore not martyrs, nor are they victims of anyone's despotism. Yet it goes beyond this. Not only is the highly evolved being clear that he can create everything all over again, he is also clear that he doesn't have to. He is clear that he needed none of it to be happy or to survive. He understands that he requires nothing exterior to himself, and that the himself which he is has nothing to do with anything physical. Lesser evolved beings and races are not always clear about this. Finally, the highly evolved being understands that she and her attackers are one. She sees the attackers as a wounded part of herself. Her function in that circumstance is to heal all wounds, so that the all-in-one can again know itself as it really is. Giving away all that she has would be like giving yourself an aspirin.
Whoa, what a concept. What an understanding. But I need to go back to something you said earlier. You said that highly evolved beings...
Let's abbreviate that as HEBs from now on. It's a long name to have to use over and over again.
Good, okay. Well, you said that HEBs would never end the corporal experience of another without the being's permission.
That's right.
But why would one being give another being permission to end its physical life?
There could be any number of reasons. It might offer itself as food, for instance, or to serve some other necessity, like stopping a war.
You know, this must be why, even in our own culture, there are those who would never kill any animal for food or hides without asking the spirit of that being for permission.
Yes, this is the way of your Native Americans, who would not even pick a flower, an herb, or a plant without having this communication. All of your indigenous cultures do the same. Interestingly, those are the tribes and cultures that you call primitive.
Oh, man, are you telling me I can't even pick a radish without asking if it's okay?
You can do anything you choose to do. You asked me what HEBs would do.
So Native Americans are highly evolved beings?
As with all races and species, some are and some are not. It's an individual thing. As a culture, though, they have reached a very high level. The cultural myths which inform much of their experience are very elevated. But you have forced them to mix their cultural myths with your own.
Wait a minute, what are you saying? The red man was a savage. That's why we had to kill them by the thousands and put the rest in land prisons we called reservations. Why even now we take their sacred sites and put golf courses on them. We have to. Otherwise, they might honor their sacred sites and remember their cultural stories and perform their sacred rituals. We can't have that.
I get the picture.
No, really. Why, if we hadn't taken over and tried to erase their culture, they might have impacted ours. Then how would we have wound up? We'd be respecting the land and the air, refusing to poison our rivers. And then where would our industry be? The whole population would probably still be walking around naked, with no shame, bathing in the river, living off the land, instead of crowding into high-rises and condominiums and bungalows and going to work in the asphalt jungle. Why, we'd probably still be listening to ancient wisdom teachings around a campfire instead of watching TV. We would have made no progress at all.
Well, fortunately, you know what's good for you.
Tell me more about highly evolved civilizations and highly evolved beings, will you? Outside of the fact that they don't kill each other for any reason, what else makes them different from us?
They share.
Hey, we share.
No, they share everything, with everyone. Not a being goes without. All the natural resources of their world, of their environment, are divided equally and distributed to everyone. A nation or a group or a culture isn't thought to own a natural resource simply because it happens to occupy the physical location where that resource is found. The planet or planets, which a group of species calls home, is understood to belong to everyone, to all the species in that system. Indeed, the planet or group of planets itself is understood to be a system. It is viewed as a whole system, not as a bunch of little parts or elements, any one of which can be eliminated, decimated, or eradicated without damage to the system itself.
The ecosystem, as we call it.
Well, it's larger than that. It's not just the ecology, which is the relationship of the planet's natural resources to the planet's inhabitants. It's also the relationship of the inhabitants to themselves, to each other, and to the environment. It's the interrelationship of all the species of life.
The species system.
Yes, I like that word. It's a good word. Because what we're talking about is larger than the ecosystem. It's truly the species system, or what your Buckminster Fuller called the noosphere.
I like species system better. It's easier to understand. I always wondered what in blazes the noosphere was.
Bucky likes your word, too. He's not attached. He always liked whatever made things simpler or easier.
You're talking to Buckminster Fuller now? You've turned this dialogue into a seance?
Let's just say I have reason to know that the essence which identified itself as Buckminster Fuller is delighted with your new word.
Wow, that's great. I mean, that is so cool, just to be able to know that.
It is cool, I agree.
So in highly evolved cultures, it's the species system that matters.
Yes, but it isn't that individual beings don't matter. Quite to the contrary. The fact that individual beings do matter is reflected in the fact that effect on the species system is uppermost when considering any decision. It is understood that the species system supports all life and every being at the optimum level. Doing nothing that would harm the species system is therefore a statement that each individual being is important. Not only the individual beings with status or influence or money, not only the individual beings with power or size or the presumption of greater self-awareness, all beings and all species in the system.
How can that work? How can that be possible? On our planet, the wants and needs of some species have to be subordinated to the wants and needs of others, or we couldn't experience life as we know it.
You are moving dangerously close to the time when you will not be able to experience life as you know it, precisely because you have insisted on subordinating the needs of most species to the desires of only one.
The human species.
Yes, and not even all members of that species, but only a few. Not even the largest number, which might have some logic to it, but by far the smallest.
The richest and the most powerful.
You've called it.
Well, here we go. Another tirade against the rich and the accomplished.
Far from it. Your civilization does not deserve a tirade, any more than a room full of small children deserves one. Human beings will do what they are doing, to themselves and to each other, until they realize that it is no longer in their best interests. No amount of tirades will change that. If tirades changed things, your religions would have been far more effective long before now.
Whoa, zip, zing, you're getting everyone today, aren't you?
I'm doing nothing of the sort. Are these simple observations stinging you? Look then to see why. This much we both know. The truth is often uncomfortable. Yet this book has come to bring the truth, as have others which I have inspired, and movies and television programs.
I'm not sure I want to encourage people to watch television.
For better or worse, television is now the campfire of your society. It is not the medium that is taking you in directions you say you do not wish to go. It is the messages you allow to be placed there. Do not denounce the medium. You may use it one day yourself to send a different message.
Let me get back if I can. Can I get back to my original question here? I'm still wanting to know how a species system can work with the needs of all species in the system treated equally.
The needs are all treated equally, but the needs themselves are not all equal. It's a question of proportion and of balance. Highly evolved beings deeply understand that all living things within what we have chosen here to call the species system have needs which must be met if the physical forms that both create and sustain the system are to survive. They also understand that not all these needs are the same or equal in terms of the demands they place on the system itself. Let's use your own species system as an example.
Okay.
Let's use the two living species you call trees and humans.
I'm with you.
Obviously, trees do not require as much daily maintenance as humans, so their needs are not equal, yet they are interrelated. That is, one species depends on the other. You must pay as much attention to the needs of trees as to the needs of humans. But the needs themselves are not as great. Yet if you ignore the needs of one species of living thing, you do so at your peril. The book I mentioned earlier as being of critical importance, The Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight, describes all of this magnificently. It says that trees take carbon dioxide out of your atmosphere, using the carbon portion of this atmospheric gas to make carbohydrates, that is, to grow. Nearly everything of which a plant is made, including roots, stems, leaves, even the nuts and fruits which the tree bears, are carbohydrates. Meanwhile, the oxygen portion of this gas is released by the tree. It is the tree's waste matter. Human beings, on the other hand, need oxygen to survive. Without trees to convert the carbon dioxide, which is plentiful in your atmosphere, into oxygen, which is not, you, as a species, cannot survive. You, in turn, breathe out carbon dioxide, which the tree needs to survive. Do you see the balance?
Of course. It's ingenious.
Thank you. Now please quit destroying it.
Oh, come on. We plant 2 trees for every one we cut down.
Yes, it will take only 300 years for those trees to grow to the strength and size which will allow them to produce as much oxygen as many of the old-growth trees you are chopping down. The oxygen manufacturing plant which you call the Amazon rainforest can be replaced in its capacity to balance your planet's atmosphere in, say, 2,000 or 3,000 years. Not to worry. You're clearing thousands of acres every year, but not to worry.
Why? Why are we doing that?
You clear the land so that you can raise cattle to slaughter and eat. Raising cattle is said to provide more income for the indigenous peoples of the rainforest country. So all this is proclaimed to be about making the land productive. In highly evolved civilizations, however, eroding the species system is not looked at as productive, but rather destructive. So Hebs have found a way to balance the total needs of the species system. They choose to do this rather than serve the desires of one small portion of the system. For they realize that no species within the system can survive if the system itself is destroyed.
Man, that seems so obvious. That seems so painfully obvious.
The obviousness of it may be even more painful on Earth in the years ahead if your so-called dominant species doesn't wake up.
I get that, man. I get it big. And I want to do something about it, but I feel so helpless. I feel sometimes so helpless. What can I do to bring about change?
There's nothing you have to do, but there's a great deal you can be.
Okay, help me with that.
Human beings have been trying to solve problems at the doingness level for a long time without much success. That's because true change is always made at the level of being, not doing. Oh, you've made certain discoveries, all right, and you've advanced your technologies, and so in some ways you've made your lives easier. But it's not clear whether you've made them better. And on the larger issues of principle, you have made very slow progress. You are facing many of the same problems of principle that you've faced for centuries on your planet. Your idea that Earth exists for the exploitation of the dominant species is a good example. You clearly will not change what you are doing around that until you change how you are being. You have to change your idea about who you are in relationship to your environment and everything in it before you will ever act differently. It is a matter of consciousness, and you have to raise consciousness before you can change consciousness.
How can we do that?
Stop being quiet about all this. Speak up, raise a ruckus, raise the issues. You might even raise some collective consciousness. On just one issue, for instance. Why not grow hemp and use it to make paper? Do you have any idea how many trees it takes just to supply your world with daily newspapers? To say nothing of paper cups, carry-out cartons, and paper towels. Hemp can be grown inexpensively and harvested easily, and used not only for making paper, but the strongest rope and the longest-lasting clothing, and even some of the most effective medicines your planet can provide. In fact, cannabis can be planted so inexpensively and harvested so easily and has so many wonderful uses that there's a huge lobby working against it. Too many would lose too much to allow the world to turn to this simple plant, which can be grown almost anywhere. This is just one example of how greed replaces common sense in the conduct of human affairs. So give this program to everyone you know, not only so that they get this, but so that they get everything else that's being said here. And there's still a great deal more.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm getting depressed, like a lot of people said they felt after book 2. Is this going to be more and more talk about how we're destroying things here and really blowing it? Because I'm not sure I'm really up for this, you know.
Are you up for being inspired? Are you up for being excited? Because learning about and exploring what other civilizations, advanced civilizations, are doing should both inspire and excite you. Think of the possibilities. Think of the opportunities. Think of the golden tomorrows just around the corner.
If we wake up.
You will wake up. You are waking up. The paradigm is shifting. The world is changing. It's happening right in front of your eyes. This program is part of it. You are part of it. Remember, you are in the room to heal the room. You are in the space to heal the space. There is no other reason for you to be here. Don't give up. Don't give up. The grandest adventure has just begun.
All right. All right. I choose to be inspired by the example and wisdom of highly evolved beings, not discouraged by it.
Good. That is a wise choice, given where you say you want to go as a species. You have much you can remember from observing these beings. Hebs live in unity. with a deep sense of interrelatedness. Their behaviors are created by their sponsoring thoughts, what you might call the basic guiding principles of their society. Your behaviors, too, are created by your sponsoring thoughts or the basic guiding principles of your society.
Well, what are the basic guiding principles of a Heb society?
Their first guiding principle is we are all one. Every decision, every choice, all of what you would call morals and ethics is based upon this principle. The second guiding principle is everything in the one interrelates. Under this principle, no one member of a species could or would keep something from another simply because he had it first, or it's his possession, or it's in short supply. The mutual dependency of all living things in the species system is recognized and honored. The relative needs of every species of living organism within the system are always kept in balance, because they are always kept in mind.
Does this second guiding principle mean that there is no such thing as personal ownership?
Not as you understand it. A Heb experiences personal ownership in the sense of holding personal responsibility for every good thing in his care. The closest word in your language to describe what a highly evolved being feels about what you would call a prized possession is stewardship. A Heb is a steward, not an owner. The word own and your concept behind it are not part of the culture of Hebs. There's no such thing as possession in the sense of something being a personal belonging. Hebs do not possess, Hebs caress. That is, they hold, embrace, love, and care for things, but they do not own them. Humans possess, Hebs caress. In your language, this is how the difference could be described. Earlier in your history, humans felt they had the right to personally possess everything they laid their hands on. This included wives and children, land, and the riches of the land. Stuff and whatever other stuff their stuff could get them was also theirs. Much of this belief is still held as truth today in human society. Humans became obsessed with this concept of ownership. Hebs who watch this from a distance call this your possession obsession. Now, as you have evolved, you understand more and more that you can really, truly possess nothing, least of all your spouses and children. Many of you, though, still cling to the notion that you can possess land and everything on it, under it, and over it. Yes, you even talk about air rights. The Hebs of the universe, by contrast, deeply understand that the physical planet beneath their feet is not something that can be possessed by any single one of them. Although an individual Heb may be granted, through the mechanisms of his or her society, a parcel of land for which to care. If she is a good steward of the land, she may be allowed, asked, to pass stewardship on to her offspring and they to theirs. Yet if at any time either he or his offspring prove to be poor stewards of the land is no longer kept in their care.
Wow, if that were the guiding principle here, half the industries in the world would have to give up their property.
The world's ecosystem would dramatically improve overnight. You see, in a highly evolved culture, a corporation, as you call it, would never be allowed to despoil the land in order to make a profit, for it would be clearly seen that the quality of the lives of the very people who own or work for the corporation are being irrevocably damaged. What profit is there in that?
Well, the damage might not be felt for many years, whereas the benefits are realized right here, right now. So that would be what's called, I guess, short-term profit, long-term loss. But who cares about long-term loss if you're not going to be there to experience it?
Highly evolved beings do. But then they live a lot longer.
How much longer?
Many times longer. In some Heb societies, beings live forever, or as long as they choose to remain in corporal form. So in Heb societies, individual beings are usually around to experience the long-term consequences of their actions.
How do they manage to stay alive so long?
Of course, they are never not alive, any more than you are. But I know what you mean. You mean with the body.
Yes. So how do they manage to stay with the body for so long? Why is this possible?
Well, first, because they don't pollute their air, their water, and their land. They do not put chemicals into the ground, for instance, which are then taken up by plants and animals and brought into the body upon consumption of those plants and animals. A Heb, in fact, would never consume an animal, much less fill the ground and the plants which the animal eats with chemicals, then fill the animal itself with chemicals, and then consume it. The Heb would correctly assess such a practice to be suicidal. So Hebs do not pollute their environment, their atmosphere, and their own corporal bodies as humans do. Your bodies are magnificent creations made to last infinitely longer than you allow them to. Hebs also exhibit different psychological behaviors that equally prolong life.
Such as?
A Heb never worries, and wouldn't even understand the human concept of worry or stress. Neither would a Heb hate or feel rage or jealousy or panic. Therefore, the Heb does not produce biochemical reactions within her own body that eat away at it and destroy it. A Heb would call this eating itself, and a Heb would no sooner consume itself than it would consume another corporal being.
How does a Heb manage this? Are humans capable of such control over emotions?
First, a Heb understands that all things are perfect, that there is a process in the universe that is working itself out, and that all they have to do is not interfere with it. So a Heb never worries, because a Heb understands the process. And to answer your second question, yes, humans have this control, although some don't believe they have it, and others simply don't choose to exercise it. The few who do make an effort live a great deal longer, assuming chemicals and atmospheric poisons haven't killed them, and also assuming that they haven't voluntarily poisoned themselves in other ways.
Wait a minute, we voluntarily poison ourselves?
Some of you do, yes.
How?
As I said, you eat poisons. Some of you drink poisons. Some of you even smoke poisons. A highly evolved being finds such behaviors incomprehensible. He can't imagine why you would deliberately take into your body substances that you know can't be doing you any good.
Well, we find eating, drinking, and smoking certain things enjoyable.
A Heb finds life in the body enjoyable, and can't imagine doing anything that she knows ahead of time could limit or terminate that or make it painful.
Well, some of us don't believe that eating red meat plentifully or drinking alcohol or smoking plants will limit or terminate our lives or make them painful.
Then your observational skills are very dull. They need sharpening. A Heb would suggest that you simply look around you.
Yes, well, what else can you tell me about what life is like in the highly evolved societies of the universe?
There is no shame.
No shame?
Nor any such thing as guilt.
Well, how about when a being proves to be a bad steward of the land? You just said they take the land away from him. Doesn't that mean he's being judged and found guilty?
No, it means he's been observed and found unable. In highly evolved cultures, beings would never be asked to do something they've demonstrated an inability to do.
What if they still wanted to do it?
They would not want to.
Why not?
Their own demonstrated inability would eliminate their desire. This is a natural outcome of their understanding that their inability to do a particular thing could potentially damage another. This they would never do, for to damage the other is to damage the self, and they know this.
So it is still self-preservation that drives the experience, just like on Earth.
Certainly. The only thing that's different is their definition of self. A human defines self very narrowly. You speak of yourself, your family, your community. A Heb defines self quite differently. She speaks of the self, the family, the community.
As if there were only one.
There is only one. That's the whole point.
I understand.
And so in a highly evolved culture, a being would never, for instance, insist on raising offspring if that being consistently demonstrated to itself its own inability to do so. This is why in highly evolved cultures, children don't raise children. Offspring are given to elders to raise. This doesn't mean that new offspring are torn from those who gave them life, taken from their arms, and given to virtual strangers to raise. It's nothing like that. In these cultures, elders live closely with the young ones. They're not shuffled off to live by themselves. They're not ignored and left to work out their own final destinies. They are honored, revered, and held close as part of a loving, caring, vibrant community. When a new offspring arrives, the elders are right there, deep within the heart of that community and that family, and their raising of the offspring is as organically correct as it feels in your society to have the parents do this. The difference is that though they always know who their parents are, the closest term in their language would be life-givers, these offspring are not asked to learn about the basics of life from beings who are still learning about the basics of life themselves. In Heb societies, the elders organize and supervise the learning process, as well as housing, feeding, and caring for the children. Offspring are raised in an environment of wisdom and love, great patience, and deep understanding. The young ones who gave them life are usually off somewhere, meeting the challenges and experiencing the joys of their own young lives. They may spend as much time with their offspring as they choose. They may even live in the dwelling of the elders with the children, to be right there with them in a home environment, and to be experienced by them as part of it. It is all a very unified, integrated experience, but it is the elders who do the raising, who take the responsibility. And it is an honor, for upon the elders is placed the responsibility for the future of the entire species. And in Heb societies, it is recognized that this is more than should be asked of young ones. I touched on this earlier when we talked about how you raise offspring on your planet and how you might change that.
Yes, and thank you for further explaining this and how it could work. So getting back, a Heb does not feel guilt or shame, no matter what he does?
No, because guilt and shame is something which is imposed on a being from outside of itself. It can then be internalized, no question about that, but it is initially imposed from the outside, always. No divine being, and all beings are divine, ever knows itself or anything it is doing to be shameful or guilty until someone outside of itself labels it that way. In your culture, is a baby ashamed of its bathroom habits? Not until you tell it to be. Does a child feel guilty for pleasuring itself with its genitals? Of course not. Not until you tell it to feel guilty. The degree to which a culture is evolved is demonstrated by the degree to which it labels a being or an action shameful or guilty.
Are no actions to be called shameful? Is a person never guilty no matter what he does?
As I've already told you, there is no such thing as right or wrong.
There are still some people who don't understand that.
To understand what is being said here, this dialogue must be read in its entirety. Taking any statement out of context could make it not understandable. Books 1 and 2 contain detailed explanations of the wisdom above. You are asking me here to describe the highly evolved cultures of the universe. They already understand this wisdom.
How else are these cultures different from our own?
In many other ways. They do not compete. They realize that when one loses, everyone loses. They therefore do not create sports and games which teach children and perpetuate in adults the extraordinary thought that someone winning while another is losing is entertainment. Also, as I said, they share everything. When another is in need, they would never dream of keeping or hoarding something they had simply because it was in scarce supply. On the contrary, that would be their very reason for sharing it. In your society, the price goes up for that which is rare, if you share it at all. In this way, you ensure that if you are going to share something which you possess, at least you'll be enriched doing it. Highly evolved beings are also enriched by sharing rare things. The only thing that is different between Hebs and humans is how Hebs define being enriched. A Heb feels enriched by sharing everything freely, without needing to profit. Indeed, this feeling is the profit. There are several guiding principles of your culture which produce your behaviors. As I said earlier, one of your most basic ones is survival of the fittest. This might be called your second guiding principle. It underlies everything your society has created: its economics, its politics, its religions, its education, its social structures. Yet to a highly evolved being, the principle itself is an oxymoron. It is self-contradicting. Since the first guiding principle of a Heb is we are all one, the one is not fit until the all is fit. Survival of the fittest is therefore impossible, or the only thing that is possible, therefore a contradiction, since the fittest is not fit until it is. Are you following this?
Yes. We call it communism.
On your planet, you have rejected out of hand any system which does not allow for the advancement of one being at the expense of another. If a system of governance or economics requires an attempt at equitable distribution to all of the benefits created by all, with the resources belonging to all, you have said that system of governance violates the natural order. Yet in highly evolved cultures, the natural order is equitable sharing.
Even if a person or group has done nothing to deserve it? Even if there has been no contribution to the common good? Even if they are evil?
The common good is life. If you are alive, you are contributing to the common good. It is very difficult for a spirit to be in physical form. To agree to take such a form is, in one sense, a great sacrifice, yet one that is necessary and even enjoyed if the all is to know itself experientially and to recreate itself anew in the next grandest version of the greatest vision it ever held about who it is. It is important to understand why we came here.
We?
The souls which make up the collective.
You're losing me.
As I've already explained, there is only one soul, one being, one essence. Some of you call this God. This single essence individuates itself as everything in the universe. In other words, all that is. This includes all the sentient beings, or what you have chosen to call souls.
So, God is every soul that is?
Every soul that is now, ever was, and ever will be.
So God is a collective?
That's the word I chose. Because it comes closest in your language to describing how things are.
Not a single awesome being, but a collective?
It doesn't have to be one or the other. Think outside the box.
God is both? A single awesome being, which is a collective of individualized parts?
Good, very good.
And why did the collective come to Earth?
To express itself in physicality, to know itself in its own experience, to be God, as I've already explained in detail in Book 1.
You created us to be you?
We did, indeed. That is exactly why you were created.
And humans were created by a collective?
Your own Bible said, "Let us create man in our image and after our likeness," before the translation was changed. Life is the process through which God creates itself and then experiences the creation. This process of creation is ongoing and eternal. It is happening all the time. Relativity and physicality are the tools with which God works. Pure energy, what you call spirit, is what God is. This essence is truly the Holy Spirit. By a process through which energy becomes matter, spirit is embodied in physicality. This is done by the energy literally slowing itself down, changing its oscillation, or what you would call vibration. That which is all does this in parts. That is, parts of the whole do this. These individuations of spirit are what you have chosen to call souls. In truth, there is only one soul, reshaping and reforming itself. This might be called the Reformation. You are all gods in formation. God's information. That is your contribution, and it is sufficient unto itself. To put this simply, by taking form, you have already done enough. I need nothing more. You have contributed to the common good. You have made it possible for that which is common, the one common element, to experience that which is good. Even you have written that God created the heavens and the earth, and the animals who walk upon the land, and the birds of the air, and the fishes of the sea, and it was very good. Good cannot exist experientially without its opposite. Therefore have you also created evil, which is the backward motion or opposite direction of good. It is the opposite of life, and so have you created what you call death. Yet death does not exist in ultimate reality, but is merely a concoction, an invention, an imagined experience through which life becomes more valued by you. Thus evil is live spelled backward. So clever you are with language. You fold into it secret wisdoms that you do not even know are there. Now, when you understand this entire cosmology, you comprehend the great truth. You could then never demand of another being that it give you something in return for your sharing the resources and necessities of physical life.
As beautiful as that is, there are still some people who would call it communism.
If they wish to do so, then so be it. Yet I tell you this, until your community of beings knows about being in community, you will never experience Holy Communion and cannot know who I am. The highly evolved cultures of the universe understand deeply all that I have explained here. In those cultures, it would not be possible to fail to share, nor would it be possible to think of charging increasingly exorbitant prices the more rare a necessity became. Only extremely primitive societies would do this. Only very primitive beings would see scarcity of that which is commonly needed as an opportunity for greater profits. Supply and demand does not drive the Hebb system. This is part of a system that humans claim contributes to their quality of life and to the common good. Yet from the vantage point of a highly evolved being, your system violates the common good, for it does not allow that which is good to be experienced in common. Another distinguishing and fascinating feature of highly evolved cultures is that within them there is no word or sound for, nor any way to communicate the meaning of the concept of yours and mine. Personal possessives do not exist in their language, and if one were to speak in earthly tongues, one could only use articles to describe things. Employing that convention, my car becomes the car I am now with. My partner or my children becomes the partner or the children I am now with. The term now with or in the presence of is as close as your languages can come to describing what you would call ownership or possession. That which you are in the presence of becomes the gift. These are the two presents of life. Thus, in the language of highly evolved cultures, one could not even speak in terms of my life, but could only communicate the life I am in the presence of. This is something akin to your speaking of being in the presence of God. When you are in the presence of God, which you are any time you are in the presence of each other, you would never think of keeping from God that which is God's, meaning any part of that which is. You would naturally share and share equally that which is God's with any part of that which is God. This is the spiritual understanding which undergirds the entire social, political, economic, and religious structures of all highly evolved cultures. This is the cosmology of all of life, and it is merely failure to observe this cosmology, to understand it and to live within it, which creates all of the discord of your experience on Earth.
What are the beings like on other planets? I mean, physically.
Take your pick. There are as many varieties of beings as there are species of life on your planet. Actually, more.
Are there beings who look very much like us?
Of course. Some look exactly like you, given minor variations.
Well, how do they live? What do they eat? How are they dressed? In what way do they communicate? I want to learn all about ETs here. Come on, out with it.
I understand your curiosity, yet these books are not being given to you to satisfy curiosity. The purpose of our conversation is to bring a message to your world.
Oh, come on, just a few questions. And by the way, they're more than curiosities. We may have something to learn here, or more accurately, to remember.
That really is more accurate, for you have nothing to learn, but merely to remember who you really are.
Well, you made that wonderfully clear in Book 1. Do these beings on other planets remember who they are?
As you might expect, all beings elsewhere are in various stages of evolution. But in what you have here termed highly evolved cultures, yes, the beings have remembered.
Well, how do they live, work, travel, communicate?
Travel as you know it in your culture does not exist in highly evolved societies. Technology has advanced far beyond the necessity of using fossil fuels to drive engines embedded in huge machines that move bodies around. In addition to what has been provided by new physical technologies, understandings of the mind and of the very nature of physicality itself have also advanced. As a result of the combination of these two types of evolutionary advances,
it has become possible for Hebs to disassemble and reassemble their bodies at will, allowing most beings in most highly evolved cultures to be wherever they choose, whenever they choose.
Including light years across the universe?
Yes. In most cases, yes. Such long-distance travel across galaxies is done like a stone skipping across water. No attempt is made to go through the matrix, which is the universe, but rather to skip around on it. That is the best imagery which can be found in your language to explain the physics of it. As for what you call in your society work, such a concept does not exist in most Heb cultures. Tasks are performed and activities are undertaken based purely on what a being loves to do and sees as the highest expression of self.
Well, that's super if one can do it, but how does the menial labor get done?
The concept of menial labor does not exist. What you would label as menial in your society is often the most highly honored in the world of highly evolved beings. Hebs who do the daily tasks that must be done for a society to exist and to function are the most highly rewarded, highly decorated workers in the service of all. I put the word workers in quotes here because to a Heb this is not considered work at all, but the highest form of self-fulfillment. The ideas and experiences that humans have created around self-expression, which you've called work, are simply not part of the Heb culture. Drudgery, overtime, pressure, and similar self-created experiences are not chosen by highly evolved beings who, among other things, are not attempting to get ahead, rise to the top, or be successful. The very concept of success as you have defined it is foreign to a Heb, precisely because its opposite, failure, does not exist.
Well, then how do Hebs ever have an experience of accomplishment or achievement?
Not through the construction of an elaborate value system surrounding competition, winning and losing, as is done in most human societies and activities, even and especially in your schools, but rather through a deep understanding of what real value is in a society and a true appreciation for it. Achieving is defined as doing what brings value, not doing what brings fame and fortune, whether it is of value or not.
Well, then Hebs do have a value system.
Oh, yes, of course. But one very unlike most humans. Hebs value that which produces benefit to all.
Well, so do we.
Yes, but you define benefit so differently. You see greater benefit in throwing a little white sphere at a man with a bat, or taking one's clothes off on a big silver screen, than in leading offspring to remember life's greatest truths, or sourcing a society's spiritual sustenance. So you honor and pay ball players and movie stars more than you do teachers and ministers. In this you have everything backward, given where you say that you want to go as a society. You have not developed very keen powers of observation. Hebs always see what's so and do what works. Humans very often do not. Hebs do not honor those who teach or minister because it is morally right. They do so because it is what works, given where they choose for their society to go.
Still, where there is a value structure, there must be haves and have-nots. So in Hebs societies, it's the teachers who are rich and famous and the ball players who are poor.
There are no have-nots in a Heb society. No one lives in the depths of degradation to which you have allowed many humans to fall. And no one dies of starvation as 400 children an hour and 30,000 people a day do on your planet. And there is no such thing as a life of quiet desperation as there is in human work cultures. No. In Heb society, there is no such thing as the destitute and the poor.
Well, how have they avoided that? How?
By applying two basic principles. We are all one. There's enough. Hebs have an awareness of sufficiency and a consciousness that creates it. Through the Heb consciousness of the interrelatedness of all things, nothing is wasted or destroyed of the natural resources on a Heb's home planet. This leaves plenty for everyone, hence, there's enough. The human consciousness of insufficiency, of not enoughness, is the root cause of all worry, all pressure, all competition, all jealousy, all anger, all conflict, and ultimately all killing on your planet. This, plus the human insistence on believing in the separation rather than the unity of all things, is what has created 90% of the misery in your lives, the sadness in your history, and the impotence of your previous efforts to make things better for everyone. If you would change these two elements of your consciousness, everything would shift.
How? I want to do that, but I don't know how. Give me a tool, not just platitudes.
Good, that's fair. So here's a tool. Act as if. Act as if you were all one. Just start acting that way tomorrow. See everyone as you, just having a difficult time. See everyone as you, just wanting a fair chance. See everyone as you, just having a different experience. Try it. Just go around tomorrow and try it. See everyone through new eyes. Then start acting as if there's enough. If you had enough money, enough love, enough time, what would you do differently? Would you share more openly, freely, equitably?
Well, that's interesting. That's interesting because we're doing exactly that with our natural resources and being criticized by ecologists for it. I mean, we're acting as if there's enough.
What's really interesting is that you act as if the things which you think benefit you are in short supply. So you watch your supply of that very carefully, often even hoarding those things. Yet you play fast and loose with your environment, natural resources, and ecology. So it can only be assumed that you do not think the environment, natural resources, and your ecology benefit you.
Or that we're acting as if there's enough.
But you aren't. If you were, you would share these resources more equitably. Yet right now, 1/5 of the world's people are using 4/5 of the world's resources. And you show no signs of changing that equation. There is enough for everybody if you would stop thoughtlessly squandering all of it on the privileged few. If all people used resources wisely, you would use less than you do with a few people using them unwisely. Use the resources, but don't abuse the resources. That's all the ecologists are saying.
Well, I'm depressed again. You keep making me depressed.
Here's something, you know that? You're driving down a lonely road, lost and having forgotten how to get where you say you want to go. Someone comes along and gives you directions. Eureka! You're ecstatic, right? No, you're depressed. Amazing.
I'm depressed because I don't see us taking these directions. I don't see us even wanting to. I see us marching right into the wall, and yes, it depresses me.
You are not using your powers of observation. I see hundreds of thousands of people cheering as they hear this. I see millions recognizing the simple truths here. And I see a new force for change growing in intensity on your planet. Entire thought systems are being discarded. Ways of governing yourselves are being abandoned. Economic policies are being revised. Spiritual truths are being re-examined. Yours is a race awakening. These notices and observations need not be a source of discouragement. That you recognize them as truth can be tremendously encouraging if you allow this to be the fuel that drives the engine of change. You are the change agent. You are the one who can make a difference in how humans create and experience their lives.
How? But what can I do?
Be the difference. Be the change. Embody the consciousness of we are all one and there's enough. Change yourself. Change the world. You have given yourself this book and all the conversations with God material so that you might remember once again how it was to live as highly evolved beings.
We lived this way once before, didn't we? You mentioned earlier that we lived this way once before.
Yes. In what you would call ancient times and ancient civilizations. Most of what I've been describing here has been experienced by your race before.
Boy, now a part of me wants to be even more depressed. You mean we got there and then lost it all? What's the point of all this going around in circles that we're doing?
Evolution. Evolution is not a straight line. You have a chance now to recreate the best experiences of your ancient civilizations while avoiding the worst. You don't have to let personal egos and advanced technology destroy your society this time. You can do it differently. You can make a difference. That could be very exciting to you if you allow it to be.
Okay, I get it. And when I allow myself to think of it that way, I am excited, and I will make a difference. Tell me more. I want to remember as much as I can about how it was with us in our advanced ancient civilizations and how it is today, for that matter, with all highly evolved beings. How do they live?
They live in clusters, or what your world would call communities. But for the most part, they have abandoned their version of what you call cities or nations.
Oh, really? Why?
Because cities became too big and no longer supported the purpose of clustering, but worked against that purpose. They produced crowded individuals instead of a clustered community.
It's the same on this planet. There's more of a sense of community in our small towns and villages, even in our wide-open rural areas, than there is in most of our big cities.
Yes, there's only one difference on that score between your world and the other planets we are not discussing.
Which is?
The inhabitants of those other planets have learned this. They have observed more closely what works.
We, on the other hand, keep creating larger and larger cities, even though we see that they're destroying our very way of life.
Yes.
We even take pride in our rankings. A metropolitan area moves up from number 12 to number 10 on our list of biggest cities, and everyone thinks that's a cause for celebration. Chambers of Commerce actually advertise it.
It is the mark of a primitive society to view regression as progress.
You know, you said that before. You're getting me depressed again.
More and more of you are no longer doing this. More and more of you are recreating small, intended communities.
Ah, so you think we should abandon our megacities and return to our towns and villages, huh?
I don't have a preference about it one way or the other. I am simply making an observation.
As always. So what is your observation regarding why we continue to migrate to bigger and bigger cities even though we see it's not good for us?
Because many of you do not see that it is not good for you. You believe that grouping together in large cities solves problems when it only creates them. It is true that in large cities there are services, there are jobs, there are entertainments which are not and cannot be found in smaller towns and villages. But your mistake is in calling these things valuable, when in fact they're detrimental.
Aha, so you do have a point of view on this. You just gave yourself away. You said we made a mistake.
If you're headed towards San Jose...
Oh, here we go again.
Well, you insist on calling observations judgments and statements of fact preferences. And I know you are seeking greater accuracy in your communications and in your perceptions, so I'm going to call you on this every time.
Okay.
If you are headed towards San Jose, all the while saying you wish to go to Seattle, is it wrong for the bystander of whom you are asking directions to say that you have made a mistake? Is the bystander expressing a preference?
I guess not.
You guess not.
Okay, he's not.
Then what is he doing?
He's merely saying what's so, given where we say we want to go.
Excellent, you've got it.
But you've made this point before, repeatedly. Why do I keep reverting to an idea about you as having preferences and judgments?
Because that's the God who's supported by your mythology, and you will throw me into that category anytime you can. Besides, if I did have a preference, that would make everything easier for you. Then you wouldn't have to figure things out and come to your own conclusions. You just have to do as I say. Of course, you'd have no way of knowing what it is that I say, since you don't believe I've said anything for thousands of years. So you have no choice but to rely on those who claim to be teaching what I used to say during the days when I was actually communicating. But even this is a problem, because there are as many different teachers and teachings as there are hairs on your head. So you're right back where you started from, having to come to your own conclusions.
Is there a way out of this maze? And the cycle of misery it's created for the human race? Will we ever get it right?
There is a way out, and you will get it right. You merely have to increase your observational skills. You have to better see what serves you. This is called evolution. Actually, you cannot not get it right. You cannot fail. It is merely a question of when, not of whether.
But aren't we running out of time on this planet?
Well, if that's your parameter, if you want to get it right on this planet, that is, while this particular planet still supports you, then within that context, you'd better hurry.
How can we go faster? Help us.
I am helping you. What do you suppose this dialogue is about?
Okay, so give us some more help. You said a little bit ago that in highly evolved cultures on other planets, beings also abandoned the concept of nations. Why did they do that?
Because they saw that a concept such as what you would call nationalism works against their first guiding principle, we are all one.
On the other hand, nationalism supports our second guiding principle, survival of the fittest.
Exactly. You separate yourself into nations for reasons of survival and security and produce just the opposite. Highly evolved beings refuse to join together in nations. They believe in simply one nation. You might even say they have formed one nation under God.
Ah, clever. But do they have liberty and justice for all?
Do you?
Touché.
The point is that all races and species are evolving, and evolution, the purpose of observing what serves you, and making behavioral adaptations, seems to keep moving in one direction and away from another. It keeps moving toward unity and away from separation. This is not surprising, since unity is the ultimate truth, and evolution is just another word for movement toward truth.
I also noticed that observing what serves you and making behavioral adaptations sounds suspiciously like survival of the fittest, one of our guiding principles.
It does, doesn't it? So now it's time to observe that survival of the fittest, that is, evolution of the species, is not achieved, but indeed entire species have been doomed, have actually self-destructed by calling a process a principle.
Whoops, you lost me.
The process is called evolution. The principle which guides the process is what directs the course of your evolution. You're right, evolution is survival of the fittest. That is the process. Yet do not confuse process and principle. If evolution and survival of the fittest are synonymous, and if you are claiming survival of the fittest as a guiding principle, then you are saying a guiding principle of evolution is evolution. Yet that is the statement of a race which does not know that it can control the course of its own evolution. That is the statement of a species which thinks itself to be relegated to the status of observer of its own evolution. Because most people think that evolution is a process which is simply going on, not a process which they are directing according to certain principles. And so the species is announcing we evolve by the principle of, well, evolution. But they never say what that principle is because they have confused the process and the principle. The species, on the other hand, which has become clear that evolution is a process, but a process over which the species has control, has not confused process with principle, but consciously chooses a principle which it uses to guide and direct its process. This is called conscious evolution, and your species has just arrived there.
Wow, that's an incredible insight. That's why you gave Barbara Marx Hubbard that book. As I said, she actually called it Conscious Evolution.
Of course she did. I told her to.
I love it. I love it. All right, so I'd like to get back now to our conversation about ETs. How do these highly evolved beings organize themselves? If not in nations, how do they govern themselves?
They do not use evolution as their first guiding principle of evolution, but rather they have created a principle based on pure observation. They have simply observed that they are all one, and they have devised political, social, economic, and spiritual mechanisms which undergird rather than undermine that first principle.
Well, what does that look like? In government, for instance.
When there is only one of you, how do you govern yourself?
Come again?
When you are the only one there is, how do you govern your behavior? Who governs your behavior? Who outside of yourself?
No one. When I'm all alone, if I were on a deserted island someplace, for instance, no one outside of myself would govern or control my behaviors. I would eat, dress, do exactly as I want. I would probably not dress at all, actually, and I would eat whenever I was hungry and whatever felt good, whatever made me feel healthy. I would do whatever I felt like doing. And some of that would be determined, I guess, by what I thought I needed to do to survive.
Well, as usual, you have all of the wisdom within you. I've told you before, you have nothing to learn. You only have to remember.
This is how it is in advanced civilizations? They run around naked, picking berries and carving canoes? That sounds like barbarians.
Well, who do you think is happier and closer to God?
We've been through this before.
Yes, we have. It is the mark of a primitive culture to imagine that simplicity is barbarian and complexity is highly advanced. Interestingly, those who are highly advanced see it as being just the other way around.
Yet the movement of all cultures, indeed the process of evolution itself, is toward higher and higher degrees of complexity.
In one sense, yes. Yet here is the greatest divine dichotomy. The greatest complexity is the greatest simplicity. The more complex a system is, the more simple is its design. Indeed, it is utterly elegant in its simplicity. The Master understands this. That is why a highly evolved being lives in utter simplicity. It is why all highly evolved systems are also utterly simple. Highly evolved systems of governance, highly evolved systems of education, highly evolved systems of economics or religion, all are utterly, elegantly simple. Highly evolved systems of governance, for instance, involve virtually no governance at all, save self-governance.
As if there was only one being participating, as if there was only one being affected.
Which is all there is.
Which highly evolved cultures understand.
Precisely.
I'm starting to put it all together now.
Well, good. We have not much time left.
Well, what, you have to go?
This book is getting very long.
Wait, hold it. You can't quit now. I've got more questions about ETs. Are they someday going to appear on Earth to save us? Will they rescue us from our own madness by bringing us, I don't know, new technologies to control the planet's polarities, clean up our atmosphere, harness our sun's energy, regulate our weather, cure all disease, and bring us a better quality of life in our own little nirvana?
You may not want that to happen. Hebs know this. They know that such an intervention would only subjugate you to them, making them your gods, rather than the gods to whom you now claim to be subjugated. The truth is, you are subjugated to no one. And this is what the beings from highly advanced cultures would have you understand. If, therefore, they would share with you some technologies, these would be given in a way and at a rate which would allow you to recognize your own powers and potentials, not those of another. Similarly, if Hebs were to share with you some teachings, these too would be shared in a way and at a rate that would allow you to see greater truths and your own powers and potentials and not make gods of your teachers.
Too late. We've already done that.
Yes, I've noticed.
Which brings us to one of our greatest teachers, the man called Jesus. Even those who did not make him a god have recognized the greatness of his teachings.
Teachings which have been largely distorted.
Yeah. Was Jesus one of these Hebs, highly evolved beings?
Do you think he was highly evolved?
Oh, yes. as was the Buddha, Lord Krishna, Moses, Babaji, Sai Baba, and Paramahansa Yogananda, for that matter.
Indeed, and many others you have not mentioned.
Well, in Book 2, you hinted that Jesus and these other teachers may well have come from outer space, and that they may have been visitors here, sharing with us the teachings and wisdoms of highly evolved beings. So it's time to let the other shoe fall. Was Jesus a spaceman?
You are all spacemen.
What does that mean?
You're not natives of this planet you now call home.
We aren't.
No. The genetic stuff of which you are made was placed on your planet deliberately. It didn't just show up there by accident. The elements that have formed your life didn't combine themselves through some process of biological serendipity. There was a plan involved. There is something much larger going on here. Do you imagine that the 1,000,000,001 biochemical reactions it has taken to cause life as you know it to appear on your planet?
It all occurred haphazardly. Do you see this outcome as simply a fortuitous chain of random events producing a happy result by chance?
No, of course not. I agree that there was a plan. God's plan.
Good, because you are right. It was all my idea. And it was all my plan and my process.
Well, so what then? Are you saying that you are a spaceman?
Where have you traditionally looked when you've imagined yourself to be talking to me?
Up. I've looked up.
Why not now?
I don't know. Everybody always looks up to the heavens.
From where I come?
I guess, yes.
Does that make me a spaceman?
I don't know, does it?
And if I am a spaceman, would that make me any less a god?
Well, based on what most of us say you can do, no, I guess not.
And if I am a god, does that make me any less a spaceman?
It would all depend on our definitions, I guess.
What if I am not a man at all, but rather a force, an energy in the universe? That is the universe, and that is, in fact, all that is. What if I am the collective?
Well, that is, in fact, what you've said that you are. In this dialogue, you've said that.
Indeed I have, and do you believe it?
Yes, I think I do. At least in the sense that I think that God is all that is.
Good. Now, do you think there are such things as what you call spacemen?
You mean beings from outer space?
Yes.
Yes, I do. I think I've always believed that. And now here you've told me there are, so I surely believe it.
And are these beings from outer space part of all that is?
Well, yes, of course.
And if I am all that is, wouldn't that make me a spaceman?
Well, yes, by that definition. But by that definition, you are also me.
Bingo.
Yes, but you've danced away from my question. I asked you if Jesus was a spaceman, and I think you know what I mean. I mean, was he a being from outer space, or was he born here on Earth?
Your question once again assumes either or. Think outside the box. Reject either or and consider both and.
Are you saying that Jesus was born on Earth, but has spaceman blood, so to speak?
Who was Jesus' father?
Joseph.
Yes, but who is said to have conceived him?
Well, some people believe it was an immaculate conception. They say that the Virgin Mary was visited by an archangel. Jesus was conceived by the Holy Ghost, born of the Virgin Mary.
Well, if Mary was visited by an archangel, from where do you imagine the angel would have come?
From heaven.
Did you say from the heavens?
I said from heaven, from another realm, from God.
I see. And did we not just agree that God is a spaceman?
Well, not exactly. We agreed that God is everything, and that since spacemen are part of everything, God is a spaceman, in the same sense that God is us, all of us. God is everything. God is the collective.
Good. So this archangel who visited Mary came from another realm, a heavenly realm.
Yes.
A realm deep within yourself, because heaven is within you?
I didn't say that.
Well then, a realm within the inner space of the universe.
No, I wouldn't say that either, because I don't know what that means.
Then from where? A realm in outer space?
You're playing with words now.
I'm doing the best I can. I'm using words, in spite of their awful limitations, to get as close as I can to an idea, a concept of things which, in truth, cannot be described in the limited vocabulary of your language, or understood within the limitations of your present level of perception. I'm seeking to open you to new perceptions by using your language in a new way.
Okay, so you're saying that Jesus was fathered by a highly evolved being from some other realm, and thus he was human, but also a Heb?
There have been many highly evolved beings walking your planet, and there are many today.
You mean there are aliens among us?
I can see that your work in newspapers, radio talk shows, and television has served you well.
How do you mean?
You can find a way to sensationalize anything. I didn't call highly evolved beings aliens, and I didn't call Jesus an alien. There's nothing alien about God. There are no aliens on earth. We are all one. If we are all one, no individuation of us is alien to itself. Some individuation of us, that is, some individual beings, remember more than others. The process of remembering, reuniting with God, or becoming once again one with the all, with the collective, is a process you call evolution. You are all evolving beings. Some of you are highly evolved. That is, you remember more. You know who you really are. Jesus knew it and declared it.
Okay, so I get that we're going to do a word dance here on the Jesus thing.
Not at all. I will tell you outright. The spirit of that human you call Jesus was not of this earth. That spirit simply filled a human body, allowed itself to learn as a child, become a man, and self-realize. He was not the only one to have done this. All spirits are not of this earth. All souls come from another realm, then enter the body. Yet not all souls self-realize in a particular lifetime. Jesus did. He was a highly evolved being, what some of you have called a god. And he came to you for a purpose, on a mission.
Yeah, to save our souls.
In a sense, yes. But not from everlasting damnation. There is no such thing as you have conceived it. His mission is, to save you from not knowing and never experiencing who you really are. His intention was to demonstrate that by showing you what you can become. Indeed, what you are, if you will only accept it. Jesus sought to lead by example. That is why he said, "I am the way and the life. Follow me." He didn't mean follow me in the sense that you would all become his followers, but in the sense that you would all follow his example and become one with God. He said, "I and the Father are one, and ye are my brethren." He couldn't have put it more plainly.
So Jesus did not come from God, he came from outer space.
Your mistake is in separating the two. You keep insisting on making a distinction.
Just as you insist on making a separation and a distinction between humans and God. And I tell you, there is no distinction.
Okay. Well, can you tell me a few final things about beings from other worlds before we end? What do they wear? How do they communicate? And please don't say this is still all about idle curiosity. I think I've demonstrated that there may be something we can learn here.
All right. Briefly then. In highly evolved cultures, beings see no need to be clothed, except when some kind of covering is required to protect them from elements or conditions over which they have no control, or when ornaments are used to indicate some rank or honor. A Heb would not understand why you wear total body coverings when you do not have to. She certainly wouldn't understand the concept of shame or modesty, and could never relate to the idea of coverings to make oneself prettier. To a Heb, there could be nothing more beautiful than the naked body itself, and so the concept of wearing something on top of it to somehow render it more pleasing or attractive would be utterly incomprehensible. Equally incomprehensible would be the idea of living, spending most of one's time in boxes, which you call buildings and houses. Hebs live in the natural environment, and would only stay inside a box if their environment became inhospitable, which it rarely does, since highly evolved civilizations create, control, and care for their environments. Hebs also understand that they are one with their environment, that they share more than space with their environments, but also share a mutually dependent relationship. A Heb could never understand why you would damage or destroy that which is supporting you, and so can only conclude that you do not understand that it is your environment which supports you, that you are beings of very limited observational skills. As for communication, a Heb uses as his first level of communication the aspect of his being which you would call feelings. Hebs are aware of their feelings and the feelings of others, and no attempt is ever made by anyone to hide feelings. Hebs would find it self-defeating and therefore incomprehensible to hide feelings and then complain that no one understands how they feel. Feelings are the language of the soul, and highly evolved beings understand this. It is the purpose of communication in a society of Hebs to know each other in truth. A Heb therefore cannot and could never understand your human concept called lying. To be successful in getting one's way by communicating an untruth would be for a Heb a victory so hollow as to render it not a victory at all, but a staggering defeat. Hebs do not tell the truth. Hebs are the truth. Their whole beingness comes from what is so and what works, and Hebs learned long ago in a time beyond memory when communication was still accomplished through guttural utterances that untruth does not work. You have not yet learned this in your society. On your planet, much of society is based on secrecy. Many of you believe it is what you keep from each other, not what you tell to each other, that makes life work. Secrecy has thus become your social code, your code of ethics. It is truly your secret code. This is not true of all of you. Your ancient cultures, for instance, and your indigenous people do not live by such a code, and many individuals in your present society have refused to adopt these behaviors. Yet your government runs by this code, your business is adopted, and many of your relationships reflect it. Lying about things large and small has become so accepted by so many that they even lie about lying. Thus you have developed a secret code about your secret code. Like the fact that the emperor is wearing no clothes. Everybody knows it, but nobody's talking about it. You even try to pretend it's not so. And in this, you are lying to yourself.
You've made this point before.
I'm repeating in this dialogue the essential points, the main points you must get if you truly are to change things, as you say you wish to. And so I will say it again. The differences between human cultures and highly evolved cultures is that highly evolved beings, 1, observe fully, 2, communicate truthfully. They see what works and say what's so. This is another tiny but profound change which would immeasurably improve life on your planet. And this is not, by the way, a question of morals. There are no moral imperatives in a Heb society, and that would be a concept equally as puzzling as lying. It is simply a matter of what is functional, of what brings benefit.
Hebs have no morals?
Not as you understand them. The idea of some group devising a set of values by which individual Hebs are called upon to live would violate their understanding of what works, which is that each individual is the sole and final arbiter of what is and is not appropriate behavior for them. The discussion is always around what works for Heb society, what is functional and produces benefit for all, not around what humans call right and wrong.
Haven't we simply called what works right and what doesn't work for us wrong?
You have attached guilt and shame to those labels, concepts equally foreign to Hebs, and you have labeled an astonishing number of things wrong, not because they don't work, but simply because you imagine them to be inappropriate, sometimes not even in your eyes, but in the eyes of God. You have thus constructed artificial definitions of what works and what doesn't, definitions having nothing to do with what's really so. Honestly expressing one's feelings, for example, is often deemed by human society as wrong. Such a conclusion could never be arrived at by a Heb, since precise awareness of feelings facilitates life in any community or cluster. So, as I said, a Heb would never hide feelings or find it socially correct to do so. It would be impossible in any event because a Heb receives vibes, actual vibrations, from other beings, which makes their feelings plain enough. Just as you can sometimes feel the air when you walk into a room, a Heb can feel what another Heb is thinking and experiencing. Actual utterances, what you would call words, are rarely, if ever, used. This telepathic communication occurs between all highly evolved sentient beings. Indeed, it could be said that the degree to which a species or a relationship between members of the same species has evolved is demonstrated by the degree to which beings require the use of words to convey feelings, desires, or information. And before you ask the question, yes, human beings can develop, and some have developed, the same capacity. Thousands of years ago, in fact, it was normal. You have since regressed to the use of primal utterances, noises actually, to communicate. But many of you are returning to a cleaner form of communication, more accurate and more elegant. This is especially true between loved ones, emphasizing a major truth. Caring creates communication. Where there is deep love, words are virtually unnecessary. The reverse of this axiom is also true. The more words you have to use with each other, the less time you must be taking to care for each other, because caring creates communication. Ultimately, all real communication is about truth, and ultimately the only real truth is love. That is why when love is present, so is communication. And when communication is difficult, it's a sign that love is not fully present. To summarize, then, the model for life in a highly evolved society, beings live in clusters, or what you would call small intentional communities. These clusters are not further organized into cities, states, or nations, but each interacts with the others on a co-equal basis. There are no governments as you would understand them, and no laws. There are councils or conclaves, usually of elders, and there are what could best be translated into your language as mutual agreements. These have been reduced to a triangular code: awareness, honesty, and responsibility. Highly evolved beings have decided long ago that this is how they choose to live together. They've made their choice based not on a moral structure or spiritual revelation that some other being or group has brought forth, but rather on a simple observation of what is so and what works.
And there are truly no wars or conflicts?
No, mainly because a highly evolved being shares everything he has and would give you anything you sought to take by force. He does this out of his awareness that everything belongs to everyone anyway, and that he can always create more of what he gave away if he really desires it. There is no concept of ownership or loss in a society of Hebs, who understand that they are not physical beings, but beings being physical. They also understand that all beings proceed from the same source, and thus, we are all one.
I know you said this before, but even if someone was threatening a Heb with his life, there would still be no conflict?
There would be no argument. He would simply lay down his body, literally leaving the body there for you. He would then create another body if he chose to, by coming into physicality again as a fully formed being, or by returning as the newly conceived offspring of a loving pair of other beings. This is by far the preferred method of re-entry into physicality, because no one is more honored in highly evolved societies than newly created offspring, and the opportunities for growth are unparalleled. Hebs have no fear of what your culture calls death, because Hebs know that they live forever, and it is just a matter of what form they are going to take. Hebs can live in a physical body usually indefinitely, because a Heb has learned to take care of the body and the environment. If for some reason having to do with physical laws a Heb's body is no longer functional, the Heb simply leaves it, joyfully returning its physical matter to the all of everything for recycling, what you understand as dust into dust.
Let me go back here just a bit. I know you said that there are no laws as such, but what if somebody does not behave according to the triangular code? Then what? Kaboom?
No kaboom. There is no trial or punishment, just a simple observation of what's so and what works. It is carefully explained that what's so, what the being has done, is now at variance with what works, and that when something does not work for the group, it ultimately will not work for the individual, because the individual is the group, and the group is the individual. All Hebs get this very quickly, usually early in what you would call youth, and so it is extremely rare that a mature Heb is found to act in a way which produces a what so that is not what works.
Yes, but when one does...
He is simply allowed to correct his mistake. Using the triangular code, he is first made aware of all the outcomes related to something he has thought or said or done. Then he is allowed
to assess and declare his role in producing those outcomes. Finally, he is given an opportunity to take responsibility for those outcomes by putting corrective or remedial or healing measures into place.
What if he refuses to do so?
A highly evolved being would never refuse to do so. It is inconceivable. He would then not be a highly evolved being, and you are now talking about a different level of sentient being altogether.
Where does a Heb learn all this stuff? In school?
There is no school system in a Heb society, merely a process of education by which offspring are reminded of what's so and what works. Offspring are raised by elders, not by those who conceived them, though they are not necessarily separated from their parents during the process, who may be with them whenever they wish and spend as much time with them as they choose. In what you would call school, actually best translated as learning time, offspring set their own curriculum, choosing which skills they would like to acquire rather than being told what they are going to have to learn. Motivation is thus at its highest level, and life skills are acquired quickly, easily, and joyfully. The triangular code, these are not really codified rules, but this is the best term one can find in your languages, is not something which is pounded into the young Heb, but something which is acquired almost by osmosis through the behaviors modeled for the child by adults. Unlike your society in which adults model behaviors opposite to those which they want their children to learn, in highly evolved cultures, adults understand that children do what they see others doing. It would never occur to Hebs to place their offspring for many hours in front of a device that shows pictures of behaviors they'd like their offspring to avoid. Such a decision would be to a Heb incomprehensible. It would be equally incomprehensible if a Heb did do this, to then deny that the pictures had anything to do with their offspring's suddenly aberrant behaviors. I will say again that the difference between Heb society and human society breaks down to one really very simple element which we shall call truthful observation. In Heb societies, beings acknowledge everything they see. In human societies, many deny what they see. They see television ruining their children and they ignore it. They see violence and losing used as entertainment and deny the contradiction. They observe that tobacco harms the body and pretend it does not. They see a father who is drunken and abusive, and the whole family denies it, letting no one say a word about it. They observe that over thousands of years their religions have failed utterly to change mass behaviors, and deny this too. They see clearly that their governments do more to oppress than to assist, and they ignore it. They see a healthcare system that is really a disease care system, spending 1/10 of its resources on preventing disease and 9/10 on managing it, and deny that profit motive is what stops any real progress on educating people in how to act and eat and live in a way which promotes good health. They see that eating the flesh of animals that have been slaughtered after having been force-fed chemical-laden foods is not doing their health any good, yet they deny what they see.
They do more than that. They try to sue talk show hosts who even dare discuss this subject. You know, there's a wonderful book on this that explores the whole food topic with exquisite insight. It's called Diet for a New America by John Robbins.
People will read that book and deny that it makes any sense, and that is the point. Much of your race lives in denial. They deny not just the painfully obvious observations of everyone around them, but the observations of their own eyes. They deny their personal feelings and eventually their own truth. Highly evolved beings, which some of you are becoming, deny nothing. They observe what's so. They see clearly what works. Using these simple tools, life becomes simple. The process is on it.
Yes, but how does the process work?
To answer that, I have to make a point that I've made before, repeatedly, in fact, in this dialogue. Everything depends on who you think you are and what you are trying to do. If your objective is to live a life of peace, joy, and love, violence does not work. This has already been demonstrated. If your objective is to live a life of good health and great longevity, consuming dead flesh, smoking known carcinogens, and drinking volumes of nerve-deadening, brain-frying liquids does not work. This has already been demonstrated. If your objective is to raise offspring free of violence and rage, putting them directly in front of vivid depictions of violence and rage for years does not work. This has already been demonstrated. If your objective is to care for Earth and wisely husband her resources, acting as if those resources are limitless does not work. This has already been demonstrated. If your objective is to discover and cultivate a relationship with a loving God so that religion can make a difference in the affairs of humans, then teaching of a God of punishment and terrible retribution does not work. This, too, has already been demonstrated. Motive is everything. Objectives determine outcomes. Life proceeds out of your intention. Your true intention is revealed in your actions, and your actions are determined by your true intention. As with everything in life, and life itself, it is a circle. Hebs see the circle, humans do not. Hebs respond to what is so, humans ignore it. Hebs tell the truth always. Humans too often lie to themselves as well as others. Hebs say one thing and do what they say. Humans say one thing and do another. Deep down, you know that something is wrong, that you intended to go to Seattle, but you are in San Jose. You see the contradictions in your behaviors, and you are truly ready now to abandon them. You see clearly both what is so and what works, and you are becoming unwilling any further to support divisions between the two. Yours is a race awakening. Your time of fulfillment is at hand. You need not be discouraged by what you have heard here, for the groundwork has been laid for a new experience, a larger reality, and all this was merely preparation for it. You are ready now to step through the door. This dialogue in particular has been intended to throw open that door, first to point to it. See, there it is. For the light of truth will forever show the way, and the light of truth is what you've been given here. Take this truth now and live it. Hold this truth now and share it. Embrace this truth now and treasure it forevermore. For in these 3 books, the Conversations with God trilogy, have I spoken to you again of what is so. There is no need to go further. There is no need to ask more questions or hear more answers or satisfy more curiosities or provide more examples or offer more observations. All you need in order to create the life you desire, you have found here, in this trilogy as presented so far. There is no need to go further. Yes, you have more questions. Yes, you have more, but what ifs? Yes, you are not done yet with this exploration we have enjoyed, because you are never done with any exploration. It is clear then that this book could go on forever, and it will not. Your conversation with God will. This book will not. But the answer to any other question you could ask will be found here in this now complete trilogy. All we can do now is repeat, re-amplify, return to the same wisdom over and over again. Even this trilogy was an exercise in that. There's nothing new here, but simply ancient wisdom revisited. So revisit this trilogy often. Turn to it time and time again. When you have a question that you feel has not been answered here, listen to it again. You will find that your question has been answered. Yet if you really feel it is not, then seek your own answers. Have your own conversation with me. Create your own truth. In this will you experience who you really are.
I don't want you to go.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm always with you. Always.
Please, before we stop, just a few more questions, some final closing inquiries.
You do understand, don't you, that you may go within at any time, return to the seat of eternal wisdom, and find your answers there?
Yes, I understand that, and I'm grateful to the bottom of my heart that it is this way, that life has been created this way, that I have that resource always. But this has been working for me. This dialogue has been a great gift. Can't I just ask a few last questions?
Of course.
Is our world really in danger? Is our species flirting with self-destruction, with actual extinction?
Yes. And unless you consider the very real possibility of that, you cannot avoid it. For what you resist persists. Only what you hold can disappear. Remember also what I told you about time and events. All the events you could possibly imagine, indeed have imagined, are taking place right now in the eternal moment. This is the holy instant. This is the moment that precedes your awareness. It is what is happening before the light gets to you. This is the pre-sent moment, sent to you, created by you, before you even know it. You call this the present, and it is a present. It is the greatest gift given to you by God. You have the ability to choose which of all the experiences you've ever imagined you choose to experience now.
You've said it, and I'm now beginning, even in my limited perception, to understand it. None of this is really real, is it?
No. You are living an illusion. This is a big magic show, and you are pretending that you don't know the tricks, even though you are the magician. It is important to remember this, otherwise you will make everything very real.
But what I see, feel, smell, touch does seem very real. If that isn't reality, what is?
Keep in mind that what you are looking at, you are not really seeing. Your brain is not the source of your intelligence. It is simply a data processor. It takes in data through receptors called your senses. It interprets this energy information according to its previous data on the subject. It tells you what it perceives, not what really is. Based on these perceptions, you think you know the truth about something when actually you do not know the half of it. In reality, you are creating the truth that you know.
Including this entire dialogue with you.
Most assuredly.
Oh, man, I'm afraid that'll only give fuel to those who are saying he's not talking to God, he's making it all up.
Tell them gently that they might try thinking outside the box. They are thinking either or. They might try thinking both and. You cannot comprehend God if you are thinking inside your current values, concepts, and understandings. If you wish to comprehend God, you must be willing to accept that you currently have limited data, rather than asserting that you know all there is to know on this subject. I draw your attention to the words of Werner Erhard, who declared that true clarity can come only when someone is willing to notice. There is something I do not know, the knowing of which could change everything. It is just possible that you are both talking to God and making it all up. Indeed, here's the grandest truth. You are making everything up. Life is the process by which everything is being created. God is the energy, the pure, raw energy, which you call life. By this awareness, we come to a new truth. God is a process.
I thought you said God was a collective, that God is the all.
I did, and God is. God is also the process by which all is created and experiences itself. I have revealed this to you before.
Yes. Yes, you gave me that wisdom when I was writing a booklet called Recreating Yourself.
Indeed, and now I say it here for a much larger audience to receive. God is a process. God is not a person, place, or thing. God is exactly what you have always thought, but not understood.
Again?
You have always thought that God is the supreme being.
Yes.
You've been right about that. I am exactly that. A being. Notice that being is not a thing. It is a process. I am the supreme being. That is the supreme, being. I am not the result of a process. I am the process itself. I am the creator, and I am the process by which I am created. Everything you see in the heavens and the earth is me being created. The process of creation is never over. It is never complete. I am never done. This is another way of saying everything is forever changing. Nothing stands still. Nothing is without motion. Everything is energy in motion. In your earthly shorthand, you've called this emotion. You are God's highest emotion. When you look at a thing, you are not looking at a static something that is standing there in time and space. No, you are witnessing an event because everything is moving, changing, evolving. Everything. It was Buckminster Fuller who said, "I seem to be a verb." He was right. God is an event. You've called that event life. Life is a process. That process is observable, knowable, predictable. The more you observe, the more you know, and the more you can predict.
That's a tough one for me. I've always thought that God is the unchangeable, the one constant, the unmoved mover. It was within this inscrutable, absolute truth about God that I found my security.
But that is the truth. The one unchanging truth is that God is always changing. That is the truth, and you can't do anything to change it. The one thing that never changes is that everything is always changing. Life is change. God is life. Therefore, God is change.
But I want to believe that the one thing that never changes is God's love for us.
My love for you is always changing.
Because you are always changing. And I love you just the way you are. For me to love you just the way you are, my idea of what is lovable must change as your idea of who you are changes.
You mean you find me lovable even if who I decide I am is a murderer?
And we've been through all this before.
I know, but I just can't get it.
Nobody does anything inappropriate given their model of the world. I love you always, always. There is no way you can be that could cause me not to love you.
Yeah, but you'll punish us, right? I mean, you will lovingly punish us. You will send us to everlasting torment with love in your heart and sadness that you had to do it. What are you laughing about?
No, I have no sadness ever, because there is nothing I have to do. Who would make me have to do it? I will never punish you, although you may choose to punish yourself in this life or another, until you don't anymore. I will not punish you because I have not been hurt or damaged, nor can you hurt or damage any part of me, which all of you are. One of you may choose to feel hurt or damaged, yet when you return to the eternal realm, you will see that you have not been damaged in any way. In this moment will you forgive those you imagine to have damaged you, for you will have understood the larger plan.
What is the larger plan?
Do you remember the parable of the little soul and the sun that I gave you in Book 1?
Yes.
There's a second half to that parable. Here it is. You may choose to be any part of God you wish to be, I said to the little soul. You are absolute divinity experiencing itself. What aspect of divinity do you now wish to experience as you? You mean I have a choice? Asked the little soul. And I answered, yes. You may choose to experience any aspect of divinity in, as, and through you. Okay, said the little soul, then I choose forgiveness. I want to experience myself as that aspect of God called complete forgiveness. Well, this created a little challenge, as you can imagine. There was no one to forgive. All I have created is perfection and love. No one to forgive? Asked the little soul somewhat incredulously. No one, I repeated. Look around you. Do you see any souls less perfect, less wonderful than you? At this, the little soul twirled around and was surprised to see himself surrounded by all the souls in heaven. They had come from far and wide throughout the kingdom because they heard that the little soul was having an extraordinary conversation with God. I see none less perfect than I, the little soul exclaimed. Who then shall I have to forgive? Just then, another soul stepped forward from the crowd. You may forgive me, said this friendly soul. For what? The little soul asked. I will come into your next physical lifetime and do something for you to forgive, replied the friendly soul. But what? What could you, a being of such perfect light, do to make me want to forgive you? The little soul wanted to know. Oh, smiled the friendly soul, I'm sure we can think of something. But why would you want to do this? The little soul could not figure out why a being of such perfection would want to slow down its vibrations so much that it could actually do something bad. Simple, the friendly soul explained. I would do it because I love you. You want to experience yourself as forgiving, don't you? Besides, you've done the same for me. I have? Asked the little soul. Of course, don't you remember? We've been all of it, you and I. We've been the up and the down of it, and the left and the right of it. We've been the here and the there of it, and the now and the then of it. We've been the big and the small of it, the male and the female of it, the good and the bad of it. We've all been the all of it. And we've done it by agreement, so that each of us might experience ourselves as the grandest part of God. For we have understood that, in the absence of that which you are not, that which you are is not. In the absence of cold, you cannot be warm. In the absence of sad, you cannot be happy. Without a thing called evil, the experience you call good cannot exist. If you choose to be a thing, something or someone opposite to that has to show up somewhere in your universe to make that possible. The friendly soul then explained that those people are God's special angels, and these conditions God's gifts. I ask only one thing in return, the friendly soul declared. Anything, anything, the little soul cried. He was excited now to know that he could experience every divine aspect of God. He understood now the plan. In the moment that I strike you and smite you, said the friendly soul, in the moment that I do the worst to you that you could ever imagine, in that self-same moment, remember who I really am. Oh, I won't forget, promised the little soul. I will see you in the perfection with which I hold you now, and I will remember who you are, always.
That is an extraordinary story, an incredible parable.
And the promise of the little soul is the promise I make to you. That is what is unchanging. Yet have you, my little soul, kept this promise to others?
No, I'm sad to say I have not.
Do not be sad. Be happy to notice what is true, and be joyous in your decision to live a new truth. For God is a work in progress, and so are you. And remember this always. If you saw you as God sees you, you would smile a lot. So go now and see each other as who you really are. Observe, observe, observe. I have told you the major difference between you and highly evolved beings is that highly evolved beings observe more. If you wish to increase the speed with which you are evolving, seek to observe more.
That in itself is a wonderful observation.
And I would have you now observe that you too are an event. You are a human, being. You are a process, and you are in any given moment the product of your process. You are the creator and the created. I am saying these things to you over and over again in these last few moments we have together. I am repeating them so that you will hear them, understand them. Now, this process that you and I are is eternal. It always was, is now, and always will be occurring. It needs no help from you in order to occur. It happens automatically, and when left alone, it happens perfectly. There is another saying that has been placed into your culture by Werner Erhard. Life resolves itself in the process of life itself. This is understood by some spiritual movements as let go and let God. That is a good understanding. If you will just let go, you will have gotten yourself out of the way. The way is the process, which is called life itself. This is why all masters have said, I am the life and the way. They have understood what I have said here perfectly. They are the life, and they are the way, the event in progress, the process. All wisdom asks you to do is trust the process. That is, trust God. Or if you wish, trust yourself, for thou art God. Remember, we are all one.
How can I trust the process when the process, life, keeps bringing me things I don't like?
Like the things life keeps bringing you. Know and understand that you are bringing it to yourself. See the perfection. See it in everything, not just in things that you call perfect. I have carefully explained to you in this trilogy why things happen the way they happen and how. You do not need to read that material again here, although it might do you benefit to review it often until you understand it thoroughly.
Please, just on this one point, a summarizing insight, please. How can I see the perfection of something that I experience as not perfect at all?
No one can create your experience of anything. Other beings can and do co-create the exterior circumstances and events of the life you live in common. But the one thing that no one else can do is cause you to have an experience of anything you do not choose to experience. In this you are a supreme being, and no one can tell you how to be. The world can present you with circumstances, but only you decide what those circumstances mean. Remember the truth I gave you long ago. Nothing matters.
Yes. I'm not sure I fully understood it then. That came to me in an out-of-body experience in 1980. I recall it vividly.
And what do you remember of it?
But I was confused at first. How could nothing matter? Where would the world be? Where would I be if nothing mattered at all?
What answer did you find to that very good question?
I got that nothing mattered intrinsically, in and of itself, but that I was adding meaning to events and so causing them to matter. I got this at a very high metaphysical level as well, giving me a huge insight about the process of creation itself.
And the insight?
I got that all is energy, and that energy turns into matter. That is, physical stuff and occurrences, according to how I thought about them. I understood then that nothing matters means that nothing turns into matter, except as we choose for it to. Then I forgot that insight for over 10 years, until you brought it to me again earlier in this dialogue.
Everything I've brought you in this dialogue you've known before. I've given it to you before, all of it, through others whom I've sent you, or to whose teachings I have brought you. There is nothing new here, and you have nothing to learn. You have only to remember. Your understanding of the wisdom nothing matters is rich and deep and serves you well.
I'm sorry, but I can't let this dialogue end without pointing out a glaring contradiction.
Which is?
You taught me over and over again that what we call evil exists so that we may have a context within which to experience good. You said that what I am cannot be experienced if there is no such thing as what I am not. In other words, no warm without cold, no up without down, and so on.
That's right.
And you even used this to explain to me how I could see every problem as a blessing and every perpetrator as an angel.
Correct again.
All right, then how come every description of the life of highly evolved beings contains virtually no evil? All you've described is paradise.
Oh, good. Very good. You are really thinking about all this.
Yeah, well, actually, Nancy pointed this out. She was listening to me read some of the material out loud to her, and she said, I think you need to ask about this before the dialogue is over. How do Hebs experience themselves as who they really are if they've eliminated all the negative stuff from their lives? I thought it was a pretty good question. In fact, it stopped me cold. And I know you just said we didn't need any more questions, but I think you need to address this one.
Okay, one for Nancy, then. As it happens, it's one of the best questions in the book. Well, it is. I'm surprised you didn't catch this when we were talking about Hebs. I'm surprised you didn't think of it.
I did.
You did?
Well, we're all one, aren't we? Well, the part of me which is Nancy thought of it.
Yeah, excellent. And of course true.
So, what's your answer?
I will return to my original statement. In the absence of that which you are not, that which you are is not. That is, in the absence of cold, you cannot know the experience called warmth. In the absence of up, the idea of down is an empty, meaningless concept. This is the truth of the universe. Indeed, it explains why the universe is the way it is, with its cold and its warmth, its ups and downs, and yes, its good and its evil. And know this, you are making it all up. You are deciding what is cold and what is warm and what is up and what is down. Get out in space and watch your definitions disappear. You are deciding what is good and what is evil. And your ideas about all these things have changed through the years, indeed, even through the seasons. On a summer day, you would call 42 degrees Fahrenheit cold. In the middle of winter, however, you would say, boy, what a warm day. The universe merely provides you with the field of experience, what might be called a range of objective phenomena. You decide what to label them. The universe is a whole system of such physical phenomena, and the universe is enormous, vast, unfathomably huge, endless, in fact. Now here is a great secret. It is not necessary for an opposite condition to exist right next to you in order to provide a contextual field within which the reality that you choose may be experienced. The distance between contrasts is irrelevant. The entire universe provides the contextual field within which all contrasting elements exist, and all experiences are thus made possible. That is the purpose of the universe. That is its function.
But if I've never experienced cold in person, but merely see that it's cold somewhere else, very far away from me, how do I know what cold is?
You have experienced cold. You have experienced all of it. If not in this lifetime, then in the last, or the one before that, or one of the many others. You have experienced cold, and big, and small, and up and down, and here and there, and every contrasting element that there is, and these are burned into your memory. You do not have to experience them again if you don't want to. You need merely remember them, know that they exist in order to invoke the universal law of relativity. All of you have experienced everything. That goes for all beings in the universe, not only humans. You have all not only experienced everything, you are everything. You are all of it. You are that which you are experiencing. Indeed, you are causing the experience.
I'm not sure I fully understand that.
I'm about to explain it to you in mechanical terms. What I want you now to understand is that what you are doing now is simply remembering everything you are and choosing the portion of which you prefer to experience in this moment, in this lifetime, on this planet, in this physical form.
My God, you make it sound so simple.
It is simple. You have separated yourself from the body of God, from the all, from the collective, and you are becoming a member of that body once again. This is the process called remembering. As you remember, you give yourself once again all the experiences of who you are. This is a cycle. You do this over and over again and call this evolution. You say that you evolve. Actually, you revolve. Just as the Earth revolves around the sun, just as the galaxy revolves around its center, everything revolves. Revolution is the basic movement of all of life. Life energy revolves. That is what it does. You're in a truly revolutionary movement.
Whoa, how do you do that? How do you keep finding words that make everything so clear?
It is you who are making it clear. You've done this by clearing up your receiver. You've tuned out the static. You've entered into a new willingness to know. This new willingness will change everything for you and for your species, for in your new willingness, you'll become a true revolutionary, and your planet's greatest spiritual revolution has just begun.
Well, it had better hurry. We need a new spirituality now. They're creating incredible misery all around us.
That is because even though all beings have already lived through all contrasting experiences, some do not know it. They've forgotten and have not yet moved into full remembering. With highly evolved beings, this is not so. It is not necessary to have negativity right in front of them in their own world for them to know how positive their civilization is. They are positively aware of who they are without having to create negativity to prove it. Hebs merely notice who they are not by observing it elsewhere in the contextual field. Your own planet, in fact, is one to which highly evolved beings look if they seek a contrasting field. As they do so, they are reminded of how it was when they experienced what you are now experiencing, and they thus form an ongoing frame of reference through which they may know and understand what they are now experiencing. Do you now understand why Hebs do not require evil or negativity in their own society?
Yes, but why then do we require it in ours?
You do not. That is what I've been telling you throughout this whole dialogue. You do have to live within a contextual field within which that which you are not exists, in order for you to experience that which you are. This is the universal law, and you cannot avoid it. Yet you are living in such a field right now. You do not have to create one. The contextual field in which you are living is called the universe. You do not have to create a smaller contextual field in your own backyard. This means that you can change life on your planet right now and eliminate all that you are not without endangering in any way your ability to know and experience that which you are.
Wow, this is the greatest revelation in the book. What a way to end it. So I don't have to keep calling forth the opposite in order to create and experience the next grandest version of the greatest vision I ever had about who I am.
That's right. That is what I've been telling you from the very beginning.
But you didn't explain it this way.
You would not have understood it until now. You do not have to create the opposite of who you are and what you choose in order to experience it. You merely need to observe that it has already been created elsewhere. You need only remember that it exists. This is the knowledge of the fruit of the tree of good and evil, which I've already explained to you was not a curse, not the original sin, but what Matthew Fox has called original blessing. And to remember that it exists, to remember that you have experienced it all before, everything that is, in physical form. All you have to do is look up.
You mean look within?
No, I mean just what I said. Look up. Look to the stars. Look to the heavens. Observe the contextual field. I've told you before, all you need to do to become highly evolved beings is to increase your observational skills. See what's so, and then do what works.
So, by looking elsewhere in the universe, I can see how things are in other places. And I can use those contrasting elements to form an understanding of who I am right here, right now.
Yes, this is called remembering.
Well, not exactly. It's called observing.
What do you think you are observing?
Life on other planets, in other solar systems, other galaxies. I suppose if we gathered sufficient technology, this is what we might observe. This is what I assume the Hebs have the ability to observe right now, given their advanced technology. You said yourself that they're observing us, right here on Earth. So that is what we would be observing.
But what is it actually that you would be observing?
I don't understand the question.
Then I will give you the answer. You are observing your own past.
What?
When you look up, you see the stars, as they were hundreds, thousands, millions of years ago. What you are seeing is not actually there. You are seeing what was there. You are seeing the past, and it is a past in which you participated.
Say again?
You were there, experiencing those things, doing those things.
I was?
Have I not told you that you have lived many lives?
Yes, but what if I were to travel to one of those places so many light years away? What if I had the ability to go there, actually go there, to be there right now, in the very moment that I am not able to see on Earth for hundreds of light years? What would I see then? Two me's? Are you saying that I would then see myself existing in two places at once?
Of course. And you would discover what I have told you all along, that time does not exist, and that you are not seeing the past at all, that it is all happening now. You are also right now living lives in what in Earth time would be your future. It is the distance between your many selves that allows you to experience discrete identities and moments in time. Thus, the past that you remember and the future that you would see is the now that simply is.
Whoa, that's incredible.
Yes, and it is true on another level as well. It is, as I've told you before, there is only one of us. So when you look up at the stars, you are seeing what you would call our past.
I can't keep up with this.
Hang on. There's one thing more I have to tell you. You are always seeing what by your terms you would define as the past, even when you are looking at what is right in front of you.
I am.
It is impossible to see the present. The present happens, then turns into a burst of light, formed by energy dispersing, and that light reaches your receptors, your eyes, and it takes time for it to do that. All the while that light is reaching you, life is going on, moving forward. The next event is happening while the light from the last event is reaching you. The energy burst reaches your eyes. Your receptors send that signal to your brain, which interprets the data and tells you what you are seeing. Yet that is not what is now in front of you at all. It is what you think you are seeing. That is, you are thinking about what you have seen, telling yourself what it is, and deciding what you're going to call it, while what is happening now is preceding your process and awaiting it. To put this simply, I'm always one step ahead of you.
My God, this is unbelievable.
Now listen, the more distance you place between yourself and the physical location of any event, the further into the past that event recedes. Place yourself a few light years back, and what you are looking at happened very, very long ago indeed. Yet it did not happen long ago. It is merely physical distance which has created the illusion of time and allowed you to experience yourself as being both here now, all the while you are being there then. One day you will see that what you call space and time are the same thing. Then you will see that everything is happening right here, right now.
This is wild. I mean, I don't know what to make of all this.
When you understand what I've told you, you will understand that nothing you see is real. You are seeing the image of what was once an event, yet even that image, that energy burst, is something you are interpreting. Your personal interpretation of that image is called your imagination, your imagination. And you can use your imagination to create anything because, and here is the greatest secret of all, your imagination works both ways.
Please?
You not only interpret energy, you create it. Imagination is a function of your mind, which is 1/3 of your 3-part being. In your mind, you image something, and it begins to take physical form. The longer you image it, and the more of you who image it, the more physical that form becomes, until the increasing energy you have given it literally bursts into light, flashing an image of itself into what you call your reality. You then see the image, and once again decide what it is. Thus the cycle continues. This is what I have called the process. This is what you are. You are this process. This is what God is. God is this process. This is what I have meant when I have said you are both the creator and the created. I have now brought it all together for you. We are concluding this dialogue, and I have explained to you the mechanics of the universe, the secret of all life.
I'm bowled over. I'm flabbergasted. Now I just want to find a way to apply all of this in my daily life.
You are applying it in your daily life. You cannot help but apply it. This is what is happening. The only question will be whether you apply it consciously or unconsciously, whether you are at the effect of the process or the cause of it. In everything, be cause. Children understand this perfectly. Ask a child, "Why did you do that?" And a child will tell you, "Just because." That is the only reason to do anything.
This is astounding. This is an astounding rush to an astounding ending to this astounding dialogue.
The most significant way in which you may consciously apply your new understanding is to be the cause of your experience, not at the effect of it. And know that you do not have to create the opposite of who you are in your personal space or personal experience in order to know and experience who you really are and who you choose to be. Armed with this knowledge, you can change your life, and you can change your world. And this is the truth I have come to share with all of you.
Whoa. Wow. I got it. I got it.
Good. Now know that there are 3 basic wisdoms that run through the entire dialogue. These are: 1, we are all one. 2, there's enough. 3, there's nothing we have to do. If you decided that we are all one, you would cease treating each other the way you do. If you decided that there's enough, you would share everything with everyone. If you decided that there's nothing we have to do, you would stop trying to use doingness to solve your problems, but rather move to and come from a state of being which would cause your experience of those problems to disappear and the conditions themselves to thus evaporate. This is perhaps the most important truth of all for you to understand at this stage in your evolution, and it is a good place to end this dialogue. Remember this always, and make it your mantra. There's nothing I have to have, there's nothing I have to do, and there's nothing I have to be except exactly what I'm being right now. This does not mean that having and doing will be eliminated from your life. It means that what you experience yourself having or doing will spring from your being, not lead you to it. When you come from happiness, you do certain things because you are happy, as opposed to the old paradigm in which you did things that you hoped would make you happy. When you come from wisdom, you do certain things because you are wise, not because you are trying to get to wisdom. When you come from love, you do certain things because you are love, not because you want to have love. Everything changes, everything turns around when you come from being rather than seeking to be. You cannot do your way to being. Whether you are trying to be happy, be wise, be love, or be God, you cannot get there by doing. And yet it is true that you will be doing wonderful things once you get there. Here is the divine dichotomy. The way to get there is to be there. Just be where you choose to get. It's that simple. There's nothing you have to do. You want to be happy? Be happy. You want to be wise? Be wise. You want to be love? Be love. That is who you are in any event. You are my beloved.
I just lost my breath. She has such a wondrous way of putting things.
It is the truth that is eloquent. Truth has an elegance that startles the heart to its own reawakening. That is what these conversations with God have done. They have touched the heart of the human race and reawakened it. Now they lead you to a critical question. It is a question
all of humanity must ask itself. Can and will you create a new cultural story? Can and will you devise a new first cultural myth upon which all other myths are based? Is the human race inherently good or inherently evil? This is the crossroads to which you have come. The future of the human race depends on which way you go. If you and your society believe you are inherently good, you will make decisions and laws that are life-affirming and constructive. If you and your society believe that you are inherently evil, you will make decisions and laws that are life-denying and destructive. Laws that are life-affirming are laws that allow you to be, do, and have what you wish. Laws that are life-denying are laws that stop you from being, doing, and having what you wish. Those who believe in original sin and that the inherent nature of man is evil claim that God has created laws which stop you from doing as you wish and promote human laws, an endless number of them, that seek to do the same. Those who believe in original blessing and that the inherent nature of man is good proclaim that God has created natural laws which allow you to do as you wish and promote human laws that seek to do the same. What is your viewpoint of the human race? What is your viewpoint of yourself? Left entirely to your own devices, do you see yourself as being able to be trusted in everything? How about others? How do you view them? Until they reveal themselves to you one way or the other, what is your basic assumption? Now answer this. Do your assumptions further your society in breaking down or breaking through?
I see myself as trustworthy. I never did before, but now I do. I have become trustworthy because I've changed my ideas on the kind of person I am. I'm also clear now on what God wants and what God doesn't want. I'm clear about you. These conversations with God have played a huge role in that, in making that shift possible. And now I see in society what I see in myself. Not something that is breaking down, but something that is breaking through. I see a human culture that is at last awakening to its divine heritage, aware of its divine purpose, and increasingly conscious of its divine self.
If that is what you see, that is what you will create. Once you were lost, but now you are found. You were blind, but now you see. And this has been an amazing grace. You have sometimes been apart from me in your heart, but now we are whole again, and we can be forever. For what you have joined together, no one but you can put asunder. Remember this, you are always a part, because you are never apart. You're always a part of God, because you are never apart from God. This is the truth of your being. We are whole, so now you know the whole truth. This truth has been food for the hungry soul. Take and eat of it. The world is thirsted for this joy. Take and drink of it. Do this in remembrance of me. For truth is the body, and joy is the blood of God, who is love. Truth, joy, love. These three are interchangeable. One leads to the other, and it matters not in which order they appear. All lead to me, all are me. And so I end this dialogue as it began. As with life itself, it comes full circle. You have been given truth here. You have been given joy. You've been given love. You've been given here the answers to the largest mysteries of life. There's now only one question remaining. It is the question with which we began. The question is not, to whom do I talk, but who listens?
Thank you. Thank you for talking to all of us. We have heard you, and we will listen. I love you. And as this dialogue ends, I am filled with truth and joy and love. I'm filled with you, and I feel my oneness with God.
That place of oneness is heaven. You are there now. You are never not there, because you are never not one with me. This is what I would have you know. This is what I would have you take at last from this conversation. And here is my message, the message I would seek to leave with the world. My children who art in heaven, hallowed is your name. Your kingdom is come and your will is done, on earth as it is in heaven.
You are given this day your daily bread, and you are forgiven your debts and your trespasses, exactly to the degree that you have forgiven those who trespass against you.
Lead yourself not into temptation, but deliver yourself from the evils you have created.
For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen.
And amen. Go now and change your world. Go now and be your highest self. You understand now all that you need to understand. You know now all that you need to know. You are now all that you need to be. You never were anything less. You simply did not know this. You did not remember it. Now you remember. Seek to carry this remembrance with you always. Seek to share it with all those whose lives you touch. For yours is a destiny grander than you might ever have imagined. You have come to the room to heal the room. You have come to the space to heal the space.
There is no other reason for you to be here. And know this: I love you. My love is always yours, both now and even forevermore. I am with you always. Always.
Goodbye, God. Thank you for this dialogue. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And you, my wonderful creation, thank you. For you have given God a voice again, and a place in your heart. And that is all either of us have ever really wanted.
We are together again.
And it is very good.